Right, so among the most essential services an active travel hub can provide is assistance when it comes to bike maintenance. We explored that last week, but today we will go for another one of those services. More bikes on the road inevitably means more punctured tubes, snap chains, and other broken parts. Both our active travel hubs in Stirling and Falkirk regularly receive requests from residents, passers-by, or even tourists who are in need of active repair kit and various other get-home emergency fixes. Interactions with the public through events and project work has also underlined that many people own bikes in poor working condition because they don't have the skills, time, inclinations, or even tools to fix them. The following webinar will outline how APL approaches this early stage intervention in bike maintenance. It will cover questions like why is it useful to organize a doctor bike or a mobile bike maintenance session and other supporting bike maintenance activities. There will be plenty of time for questions in the end, but if anyone needs to leave early and has a burning question, please pop it in the chat. Either me or my colleague Emily will answer as quick as possible. And it's also important to mention that the information here is based on our practices and experience prior to the pandemic and may change in the future. So just something to keep in mind. So I'm sure everybody's heard the name Dr. Bike before. The service, along with our provision of tools and equipment, are APL's option when it comes to simple bike maintenance. Dr. Bikes are delivered in partnership with Restart Bike. Everything okay? And it's using their mobile bike mechanic equipment at various locations. For example, at the hub, at pop-ups, and during different events. And the session usually lasts for up to 3 hours and consists of a bike mechanic on a cycle bike and an active travel staff member at a minimum. The mechanic addresses people's bike maintenance issues, and the staff member engages with people in order to provide further active travel advice, which their bike is being, while their bike is being looked at. Dr. Bike, or you might have heard it as a bike surgeon or a mobile bike mechanic, is usually free of charge bike maintenance service, whose primary goal is to make sure that the bike is safe to ride and may offer small repairs and advice. Due to, in no small part, to its free nature, Dr. Bike is very popular, and our hubs have organized it in a wide variety of settings. For example, at educational centers, universities and colleges, NHS sites, employers, pop-up hubs, and in our hub itself. However, there are a few things to consider prior to organizing a session. A mechanic carries out a basic check, making simple adjustments so the bike runs more smoothly, and will advise to repair anything dangerous. However, you need to keep in mind that extensive repairs cannot be made on the spot. If there are required, a repair recommendation is provided to the customer for future follow-up with a local bike shop. Secondly, Dr. Bike sessions can be accessed by anyone, including children, which is quite important. The joking and quick fix nature of these sessions works well with people who don't have the skills or time or inclination to fix their own bike. The activity can take place in various locations and community settings, both indoor and outdoor. Take it from me, however, it strongly benefits from an area that is visible to passers-by and is easily accessible to cyclists. So upper floors or anywhere that's accessible via stairs is definitely not preferable. Despite needing significantly less space than a bike shop, a Dr. Bike still requires space for a bike stand, a set of tools, and a small space to store fixed and waiting to be fixed bikes. So that's something to keep in mind as well. It is particularly useful also to outreach as soon as you're able to travel, sorry, as you're able to travel to communities rather than the other way around. Logistics of this do need to be thought about. A well-packed cargo bike is useful, and especially if it's electric, it just makes everything run a bit easier as well. So, having gone over the basics, why would you want to offer a doctor bike or some kind of mobile bike maintenance at your location? So, an active travel hub will experience regular requests, as already mentioned, for tools and assistance from, excuse me, from people who got stranded due to some sort of maintenance issue, or simply do not feel confident enough to tackle repairs on their own. And you would be indirectly attracting new people to cycling, which will lead to forgotten bikes being taken out of sheds and garages. Those will be at various states of disrepair, and their owners might lack the knowledge or simply would want a second opinion on if their bike is safe to use. Bikes requiring further assistance can be directed towards local bike shops, encouraging partnership and supporting local businesses. And last but not least, also the project also supports the outcomes and objectives of the Scotland's active travel framework, which is always a benefit. So the nuts and bolts of the service, staffing comes first. Similar to other bike maintenance intervention, doctor bikes are organized and run in partnership with FEO staff member and a trained recycle bike mechanic. The mechanic addresses the customer's bike maintenance issues, while an FEO staff member provides information to the customer and assistance to the mechanic if necessary. It is also possible for a staff member that is also a trained mechanic to conduct the activity, but it needs to be stressed that an experienced mechanic goes a long way, as they will be tackling various bike models, including custom bikes and different self-made repairs. It is also useful if the mechanic is a trainer as well, as this can help improve communication to clients on exactly what has gone wrong with the bike and what they can do to prevent this in the future. As we went over in our previous webinar, training is a skill in itself, over and above the mechanic's expertise, and should not be underestimated. Moving on to time, one of Dr. Bike's main advantages is flexibility, as it can be delivered in multiple locations and at various times. It usually lasts for up to 3 hours, but shorter or longer sessions can be organized when there is a need for it. For example, road day events or rapid sessions under an hour. Dr. Bike has been a helpful addition to active travel days, which usually last for most of the day, as well as our pop-up hubs, which vary in time. We also organize a Dr. Bike session every second Friday in our Sterling Hub, which provides a bit of regularity to the Dr. Bike service and allows people to plan for their visit. They can also drop off their bike the day before and collect it later on, often after the Dr. Bike is finished. From our experience, longer sessions during the winter months are not advisable and require a break in the middle. Access to warm space and drinks also goes a long way for the bike mechanic and the staff member attending it. Marketing and promotion. The service is generally promoted through partners, social media, and printed materials placed on local establishments and venues. Word of mouth is also an effective marketing tool, and as such, it's beneficial for all bike maintenance activities to be attended by a staff member who can interact with customers, promote the hub's events and future services, as well as assist, of course, the bike mechanic. The cost of sessions are currently free to the attendees. As far as the resources to run them, it depends heavily on your pre-existing equipment and space that the organizing body has access to. Staff time, bike mechanic training, equipment, and teaching space can involve a cost that can vary significantly from place to place. It is important to consider if your organization will supply the materials for those small fixes or use would you ask people to bring them themselves, as this can incur additional costs for example, brake pads, cables, tubes. It is also important that even through a doctor bike is generally, even though doctor bike is generally free of charge to the service user, it is usually paid for either via a funded project or by an organization or employers buying it as a service. There is often funding, for example, Cycle Friendly from Cycling Scotland, which the hubs are great at helping organizations to access. They can use it to pay for the service, but some big organizations use their own active travel budget. It is also important to keep in mind that Dr. Bike, particularly and employers, is a commercial service offered by different bike shops. So it's not globally available for free. When it comes to collecting data and monitoring the project, the number of bikes that Dr. Bike looks at is recorded. We use that information to work out the best locations to have Dr. Bike sessions as part of our outreach work, and also as an activity at the hub. We also measure changes in confidence levels for participants in whose bikes is being checked by a Dr. Bike mechanic as part of our follow-up survey. Although it isn't a bike maintenance course, people often learn some bike maintenance while their bike is being checked. We also keep a record of everyone who comes into the hub asking to borrow tools or panniers. Something additional we provide in our hub is access to tools and equipment, as well as organizing a puncture repair class, and those can greatly benefit the service itself and can be a great way to support the doctor bikes. A lot of people pop into the hub to borrow tools for roadside repairs. The hub has a range of bike maintenance tools available for anyone to use. The bike pump in particular sees a lot of use almost every day. Individuals can call the hub. They will be asked if they understand how to use the tool, and if unsure, given some quick guidance. We also have a pannier library with a range of bags that can also be borrowed free of charge. While we expect the tool library to be used in or just outside the hub, the panniers can be borrowed for a more extended period of time. We also run a basic puncture repair workshop from the hub itself. These classes can be led by any staff member confident in their ability to do it. Being among the most common bike issues, those classes are relevant to any new cyclist. Nevertheless, we do our best to help any cyclist in need, regardless of when they come. So we've been providing the Dr. Bike service for quite a while, and there's been a number of lessons that have popped up from our experience. Dr. Bike sessions usually attract significant attention, which makes combining them with a pop-up hub very effective. It enables the service to have a dual purpose, as it both addresses mechanical issues as well as provides information, ideas, and updates on active travel events in the local area. The Active Travel Hub, being open 6 days a week, and the regular Dr. Bike sessions there every second Friday, has allowed us to be extra flexible with people's needs and time. We now regularly receive bikes or simply find them locked in front of the hub with a note saying what was wrong with the bike. And that happens throughout the week prior to a Dr. Bike session when they can get checked. People are then free to collect them later on or even another day. We haven't experienced any significant problems with this method, but it's important to mention that if too many people leave bikes in this manner, it could create a storage problem for the hub, especially if space is already a rare commodity. FEO has been incredibly fortunate to have a close working relationship with Recycle Bike, which has facilitated the organization and delivery of bike maintenance sessions. The collaborative program works as symbiosis that it simultaneously benefits both APO and the cyclobike. APO organizes the service while cyclobike is paid for delivering it, and both enterprises gain from the increased exposure and promotion of their services and retail facilities. Dr. Bike has been around since before APL, and the name belongs. It's important to know that the name belongs to the Edinburgh Bike Station, and they have trademarked it. So anyone using it has to do so with their permission, which means they expect certain quality standards, and they do checks in order to uphold those. So keep that in mind if you decide to go with Dr. Bike yourself. Lastly, I just want to go over what we have touched upon today, and then we will move on to questions if you have any. First of all, having a trained mechanic is on the top of the list. It's key for any bike maintenance intervention. However, it is also useful, as I already mentioned, that the trained mechanic is a trainer, as he can provide additional information and just future advice for the bike in a communicative manner. The location, space, access, and timing are considerations for any bike maintenance interventions, and they are key for the success of the service. Sufficient number of quality tools. If you don't have access to these, the cost of hiring and purchasing can be significant. So please take mind of this before you organize the session. Flexibility is definitely a strong point for Dr. Bike. So even if it's useful to have a separate regular session, different times and locations are part of what makes the service attractive and easily accessible as an outreach tool. Providing additional access to tools and basic puncture repair can be a strong supporting activity for a Dr. Bike and can be useful as a follow-up tool. And lastly, even though Dr. Bike is successful on its own, as it garners quite a lot of attention anyway, combining it with an information pop-up can be highly helpful in creating meaningful engagement and providing a long-term, having a long-term engagement with your communities. And having said that, I will move on to questions if you do have any.